Welcome to Horrors Yet Unseen, the podcast where we assign each other horror movies to watch and then talk about it so our spouses don't have to listen to us go on and on and on about scary stuff they don't like. I'm Zach.
And I'm Steve. Let's talk about some scary movies. By the way, there will absolutely be spoilers in this show. You have been warned. I was listening to something today that made me think, so we talked a little bit last time about why we like horror.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, well, Google knows everything. So
yeah,
I just put in Google, why do I like horror movies? And it did not have a page that says, hey, Steve, Google here, It just is like, one of the first response, it was like a very well mind.com. It's like a psychology therapist type of place.
Mm-hmm.
And this really hit me. I said, in short, horror movies are a risk-free way to vicariously experience threats and rehearse one's responses to those threats. Plus, after people get through a horror movie unscathed, they may feel a sense of accomplishment and mastery over the threat they've experienced, which then leads them to feel more confident in their ability to handle other anxiety-provoking situations. Because they're talking about how when you're watching somebody get killed or chased or whatever, you actually, the parts in your brain are actually firing the same way that they're firing when someone's actually under real threat. And so it's literally a way of, or for some people anyway, it's a way of living this way. What happens if I lived through this experience? But then you're okay at the end because it's a movie.
Right.
And then you're like, I can take on the world.
Right.
Or I can deal with my stupid boss or, whatever it is. So I thought that was interesting it was interesting.
I didn't bring this up last time when I was going to talk about Dr. Sleep, but I actually wrote down, I really thought about that question. Why do I like horror?
Yeah.
And so it's funny that you should bring it up now. I actually wrote down that in the first episode, or what would be the first episode, you had mentioned that horror is maybe, or one of the only genres that doesn't necessarily have limits.
Yeah.
So you can push the boundaries of a lot of different subjects in horror as opposed to comedies or rom-coms or whatever.
Yep.
And because of that, I wrote down horror is about confronting fears, or at least to me, this is my own why I like horror. Pushing past things that we think we can't handle, not thinking that you can do something and then overcoming it in the end. You watch the main character endure brutal things, and then the final girl, whoever that may be, triumphs. Horror is about confronting your past and not letting it overcome you, and standing up against the darkness, whether that's physically or mentally, and then moving past it. And that literally just segued right into all of the stuff for Dr. Sleep, because I think I texted you in the middle of that movie, and I'm like, dude, this movie is making me confront things.
Yeah.
Because, Danny's having a real hard time,
Yeah.
Post the Overlook.
Yep.
The Overlook Hotel. Yeah. Post that he's really struggling with a lot of different things, and he has a lot of different coping mechanisms and things like that. And then on top of that, I think his character's name is Dick. There's that bench scene in Dr.
Dick
Horror.
Halloran, the guy, the black guy who was the chef or whatever at the Overlook.
Right. He gives, when they're in the park or whatever, he gives Danny that box, and he's like, he basically gives him a tool, and he's like, hey, whenever these demons creep up, use this box and they'll go away. Like, close them in this box in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's one really good scene. I think I probably talked about it in the last episode about Danny trying to close up that memory, and Dick immediately appears and he's like, hey, don't do this.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
I find myself in life that, like, that scene is very relatable, because I find myself wanting to shut down in those types of moments. Like, one of my coping mechanisms is sleep. If I'm depressed, if I'm going through a bad thing, if I don't want to deal with something, I'm going to go take a nap.
Oh yeah.
And yeah. And I'm sure I'm not alone in dealing with stuff like that. So yeah, I'm glad that Google both had a great answer and also didn't have your specific answer, because that'd be hilarious if Google was like, "Hey, so we've been monitoring you," and
I think it would just be a confirmation that we live in a simulation.
yes.
So what about we watched 2 movies this past week. I assigned you one, you assigned me one. So I went first last week. So why don't you go first this week? What is the movie I assigned to you, Zach?
All right. So,
and why is it your favorite movie now?
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite movie now. Okay.
Good.
You want to talk about a complicated relationship with the movie? This is a perfect example. Okay. Steve assigned me The Color Out of Space, and it's a Nick Cage movie. So that already should have given me some hint as to the wild ride I was in for. So this was the review that I wrote down immediately following this movie. I want to read it to you. I don't even know where to start with this review. And I think I sat on that sentence for a good while. Like, I just was so filled with too many emotions, and just like I became WTF. Like, does that make sense? Like, the essence of what WTF means, I became that thing. My brain was just Rainbow Wheel for a long time. So I then said, I asked Bard, which is now Gemini, that's Google's AI, to create a synopsis for this movie, and here's what it came up with.
Oh, no.
Here's what it came up with. Seeking solace, the Gardner family escapes city life for a secluded farm in rural Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
Their peace is shattered when a mysterious meteorite crashes into their land, unleashing an otherworldly force known as the Color. This entity doesn't just impact the soil, it warps reality and mutilates everything it touches, including the family itself. So that's the description. And I said, and honestly, with that description, I'm in. That description should sell anybody on this movie. Then I wrote down this. But imagine for a moment that LSD was a person. And it took a combination of LSD, psilocybin mushrooms, and meth. Then imagine that LSD person was eaten by the great Nick Cage. And then Nick Cage had a baby.
Oh.
That baby would be this movie.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the review that I wrote down. I'll post that review to Letterboxd, because this is a wild movie. So, okay, so I actually wrote down a more serious recap for the podcast. So, yeah. Man, this is just a wild movie, Steve. I will say this. I didn't hate it.
Okay.
I didn't stop it. Like, I couldn't move.
Couldn't look away.
This movie was such a train wreck of a fever dream of a, like, the way that I described it about what if LSD was a person and that person then took more LSD and then that, like, that's an accurate description. If you watch this movie, you will understand that what I just said is 100% accurate. Okay.
Oh, totally.
And if you don't agree with that, you need to go see a mental specialist. You need a brain doctor. You need to go find out. I don't know. Something maybe is up in your mind. You should come on the podcast. We should talk more about this. So here's the movie recap that I wrote. We learn that the Gardner family has moved out of the city and buy some land where they raise alpacas. Nick, his name in the movie is Nathan. Nathan has some weird reasons why they raise alpacas. Something to do with they are the animal of the future, which is a total Nick Cage kind of view of alpacas. The mom has cancer, and we clearly see some disconnect in the family, like they've all kind of gone through the ringer. Nathan, the dad, is overcompensating as a parent to help his wife. Teresa, the mom, is recovering from a major surgery, and she also has a stressful job. And I think that she's maybe a day trader or something like that. She has a bunch of clients, and she
project manager something like
that. I don't really know. Lavinia, the daughter, is a practicing Wiccan or something to that effect. I'm not overly too sure. She reads and practices out of the Necronomicon, which I have found is apparently has some sort of common thread through Lovecraft writing.
Oh, is it?
Is like this Necronomicon kind of.
I don't think he mentioned it, but this is a short story by H.P. Lovecraft that's made into a movie.
Right. Benny, the next in line son, the oldest son, is basically completely juvenile and smokes weed all the time. His parents don't like that. Jack, the youngest son, is basically the baby of the family, though I think he's a bit too old to be the baby of the family, but they kind of just treat him like he is this complete, like he can't take care of himself and
right.
Whatever. Which might just mean that they're just overcompensating his parents. Tommy Chong is in this movie. Complete surprise to me. Tommy Chong is in this movie, and he plays a man named Ezra who is acting like Tommy Chong. So it's Tommy Chong playing
himself.
Tommy Chong named somebody else, which is a real Russian nesting dog situation here, but shouldn't be too much of a stretch for Tommy Chong. So a 1983 LSD meteor crashes on the farm and starts making the family act kind of funny. This alien meteor is leaching into the water supply on the farm, and that is what is affecting everything. So the reason why Nathan, the dad, kind of goes a little crazy is because he puts some ice in his whiskey that he drinks every night because he uses that as a coping mechanism. And because he's still ingesting the water, he kind of goes a little nuts. And Jack is kind of the first one to start acting weird. He's talking about how he's got a friend in the well that is talking to him. And that's the first part where I was like, it's not the first part. It's the second part. That's the second indication. I was like, what the heck am I freaking watching? The first part was like that night. So there's basically this weird love-esque scene between the mom and the dad. And they're basically reconnecting. So she had surgery. She's feeling...
Well, she had a double mastectomy, so she wasn't feeling like sexy or whatever.
Exactly. And he's like, no, you are sexy. You're the only one, blah, blah, blah. And they start on the porch and it leads to the bedroom. And like, But that's the night the meteor crashes, and so part of me wondered if like the whole thing was just happening in their mind, like the collective family's mind. I don't really know. Again, these are it probably sounds like I'm tripping right now and I'm just describing a really bad trip that I had. So things get increasingly worse as this 1983 LSD meteor, and I say 1983 LSD meteor because the movie's freaking weird, and also the glow that it gives off is straight out of 1983.
Yeah.
So
Very
this thing starts
bright
producing
magenta.
rays out of the well, and at one point, these radioactive LSD waves hit both Jack and Teresa, and spoiler alert, combine them into one person.
Yeah,
Like melt their
little,
bodies.
yeah, the mom and the
Oh,
little kid.
oh my gosh.
Oh,
And they're just grunting and moaning, and like they can't really speak, and
it's like this
nobody in the
blob of humanity.
right. Nobody knows what to do. So they basically like take mom and Jack into the upstairs, and like that's where they live now. And go, like the dad yells at the kids to go feed your mom. And like it's this dude, this movie is freaking crazy.
Well, and the dad, he like Nick Cage is going absolute bonkers,
Yeah,
and so the fact that his wife is like this, he's like, "Oh, I'll fix it."
exactly. And I think that there's a point in the movie when like when Nathan, who's Nick Cage, he basically yeah, because it very much is like he has these split personalities. Like that's the way that this thing is affecting him,
Mhm.
and he'll lash out to the family. And you should go back and watch it because the way that he sounds when he's lashing out to the family is it reminds me of Nick Cage doing a Donald Trump impersonation.
Ooh, okay. Huh.
So, like, he sounds like he's doing a really bad Donald Trump impersonation, but he freaks out. He basically is losing his mind, and then he'll snap to, he'll come to and be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that I yelled at you," and but it's Nick Cage being Nick Cage is exactly what it is, and yeah, the alpacas turn into mutants, and they have to be put down, and I don't know, like it ends in I can't fully describe this movie at the way like the way that it ends. Everything explodes or everything. I don't have a clue, and so I don't know how to even talk about this. The ending of the movie. I think everybody basically dies, and the only person that's left, like the quote unquote final girl of the movie, is the EPA guy or whatever
Yeah,
from the beginning of the movie. But it did cause me to read slash listen to the audiobook of
the original.
Lovecraft's, yeah, like the story.
Oh, yeah, I
So,
haven't got that. Yeah, that it anything like it.
um, so as I'm listening to it, I have the book in front of me on the computer, and then I was just kind of YouTube has the audiobook.
Oh, interesting.
Because the book was written in like
For a long time.
1927,
Yeah, yeah.
and so it's way public domain by now. But so I was listening to the audiobook, I was reading and had it in front of me, and I could tell where the movie picked up on the sources.
Hmm.
But the book is the thing that was interesting to me about the book or the short story is somebody thought of this. Like somebody in 1927.
Yeah.
I want to know what H.P. Lovecraft's life was like. Like, he's now officially on my list of, hey, Zach, you're throwing a dinner party and you can invite anybody from history. Who are you inviting? I'm inviting H.P. Lovecraft because I want to know what this dude was up to. I want to know, I want to, like, I want to know everything about his life. I want to know everything about his life from the horse's mouth. Because this story is freaking wild. If the movie is already wild enough, and you can kind of maybe go, okay, well, there's some creative license, but the story is not too far off. And yeah, so it did make me go also to Letterboxd and go like what other movies are based on Lovecraft books or Lovecraft scripts.
Yeah.
I think I might just go through those movies because I enjoyed it. I didn't think that I would, but yeah, 4 out of 5. Like it was a decent movie. It was wild, and I've talked for way too long about it, but yeah.
Well, it is a wild
would recommend
ride.
this movie to anybody.
Yeah. It's a wild ride, and it is a completely brain breaking. It's because it's like, what in the world is going on? And the bizarre, the thing that like I had like I've seen the movie maybe 3 times, and every time I've had to kind of skip past the part with the mom and the son. It's like just so disturbing.
Yeah.
Like doesn't like the sheriff comes by and has to kill the mom and kid or something? Forget.
I think at one point there's this. Okay, this is, if anybody is listening to this and does not think that I am completely high right now, what I'm about to describe to you is nuts. So they're upstairs. I don't know how long they've been upstairs, Jack and Teresa, like the combined mutant of whatever they are. And at one point, as a punishment, Nick snaps into his Donald Trump impersonation, and he forces the daughter to go upstairs. Hey, you need to feed your mom. And he basically locks her in this is towards the end of the movie. He locks her in that room, like, and she doesn't want to be in there because the mom is obviously freaky and is walking on all fours, and like it's just this creepy
and begging to be killed.
Basically like, and Nick at some point he's already shot the alpacas, I think, and he has blood all over him. And he goes upstairs and he knows that he has to kill his wife. And at one point, he basically makes out with the mutant that is his wife and son. Like, he doesn't make out with because the mom is on the front and the son is basically on her back.
Yeah.
And I have no clue if Jack is still alive at this point or if she's basically absorbing him. She seems to be the only one that is grunting. I'm not too sure. And again, I'm hearing myself describe this, and I think I'm losing my mind in this moment right now. But yeah, she ends up, all that said, I think Nick actually ends up shooting his wife. And yeah, but the police come, you're right, because the EPA guy is like, hey, you guys are not well, we need to get you guys out of here. And the dad's like, no, we're going to stay. And then the daughter finally, I think the police officer shoots Nathan.
Oh, okay.
And Levinthia, or is that her name? Yeah, Levinthia. She is like, "Oh no, Dad!" And then she decides, "I'm going to stay too," and she becomes one with this, whatever. And
yeah, it's. I mean, the term Lovecraftian horror. I don't know if you've heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great example of it.
Yeah.
A lot of Lovecraft stuff is hard to put on screen, to be honest. And it's, people try often. And I think, I may have mentioned this before, but the Netflix series, Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Right. I think 2 or 3 of those are actually short stories from Lovecraft.
I did not know that. Well, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's this eldritch horror thing from like beyond otherworldly. I don't know how he came up with that stuff in 1927. Mm-hmm. I would warn you to not invite him to your dinner party, Bo, because he was a massive racist, like really, really bad. He had a cat, and it was named the N-word. Like,
okay,
so like, come over here, Edward.
What? Oh my
Yeah.
god. That's more wild than the stories that I just. Oh,
Yeah, and
okay,
he
well.
died. He died like completely poor because he couldn't sell his stuff because it was too weird. And
Okay. Well,
but very, very interesting person. I would also recommend the series on Max
yeah.
called Lovecraft Country.
Yes, that was my first introduction to Lovecraft. Was
Okay, yeah,
like
yeah,
it's fantastic.
yeah, and it's not. I mean, it's like Lovecraft adjacent. Like a lot of the creatures and stuff are Lovecraftish. But
Right.
yeah, great movie.
Wow.
Super weird.
That's a wild movie.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad you liked it.
I did.
I thought it was kind of on the edge of I didn't know if you would like that one or not. So I'm excited to talk about the one I watched, Happy Death Day, and I was excited that you assigned that to me because I've been wanting to watch it for a long time because I'm a fan of comedy horror stuff, and this is sort of comedy horror, I guess. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like lighthearted fun horror, I guess.
Yeah.
And so basic premise is her name's Teresa and she's super popular. She's one of like the old SNL sketch like Theta Theta Theta.
Yeah.
She's a stereotypical not frat, but what's it, sorority gal.
Sorority. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she's so self-absorbed and so she's like a horrible person and all of her friends are friends with massive air quotes. They're all horrible people. And beginning of the movie, she wakes up and she has been drinking the night before and she's passed out in some dude's bed in his dorm room. She wakes up with the phone is ringing and it's like, it's your birthday. Like a goofy ringtone.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know who she was in the room with. The guy's super nice. He like turns around when she takes her shirt off to change her clothes. And so she's just like thinks it's like a normal day. And so she gets up and really annoyed and she goes through walking home, walk of shame. And she gets home and her roommate's there and, hey, here's a cupcake for your birthday and all that kind of stuff. She's like, doesn't like her roommate. I knew going into it because I watched the trailer. It's like a time loopy thing, like Groundhog Day sort of thing. And I'm a sucker for those kind of movies. I absolutely, I don't know why. Usually they're so formulaic, but I like them regardless. But the only one that's not formulaic to me is the Tom Cruise one about the aliens. You seen that?
Edge of Tomorrow.
Yes,
I love that movie.
that's a fantastic movie. Groundhog Day. This one, there's one that Andy Samberg is in called Palm Springs, I think.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Fantastic. Oh, it's great. It's great. Anyhow, but I love the trope of the person going through their day. And you can tell, like, the first time she's walking across the quad or whatever on the campus, I'm like, okay, I know that she's going to, like, notice the sprinklers and the gal asking her to sign the petition and the car alarm. And so it says a typical thing of looping through, but that loops, and then she sees all the same things every single day, every single time, but it loops because she's getting killed by, like, a slasher. Dude in a mask, somebody in a mask, like this baby face mask, which has got to be the creepiest, what's the word? Mascot. The creepiest mascot on the planet. This creepy baby face thing. It's a mascot for their school. Anyway, she gets killed on the way to the party, and then she gets killed later doing something else. And she tries all these different ways to not die. Finally, she wakes up and on one of her rounds of her death, and she basically begs the guy that in the dorm room to help her out. And he turns out to be like the sweetest guy on the world, and he's super nice. And he didn't take advantage of her the night before because she was drunk, and he just let her sleep in his bed. So he's like a solid dude. And I love her. I love always in these movies they have this progression from usually it's like a bad person to a good person, and just like with Groundhog Day, he was kind of a jerk, self-absorbed. When he became a good person, he was let out of the loop. But the interesting thing about this movie, which I thought was a nice a bit of a twist, when she loops back, she's apparently fine, but she still has remnants of all of the injuries she's received from getting killed. They eventually, like, she gets taken into the emergency room because she's not feeling well in one of her loops, and they're like, you have massive trauma on your internal organs and stuff. You should be dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was an interesting twist. I liked that because it kind of gave it the vibe that she has a limit. It's not like completely open-ended. You can do whatever you want as long as you want to do it. And so I liked that constraint. A lot of times in these kinds of movies, one of the fallbacks is there's no constraint because you can just try as many times as you want. And if something little doesn't go right, you just shoot yourself in the head and start over.
Easy peasy.
Right. But she, I think all in all, she dies like 11 times. I think it's even mentioned in the movie, 11 or 12 times. And she's also trying that when she has this guy help her, they start looking for her killer. We got to figure out, we got to solve my own murder sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she keeps going down the wrong paths, trying to figure out the different people and trying to like, who's doing it to me. And she thinks she's got it figured out. She thinks it's like this dude who's run from the law he's been captured and he's in the hospital, but then he escapes and kills, and he's like a mass murderer. She thinks it's him. So she goes and she kills him, and she's like, yay, I'm done. And she goes back and sits down and eats the cupcake, and she wakes up in the guy's bed again. And she's so frustrated. She goes back home again. And by this time, she's like super nice to everybody, friendly to the right people, and she's dismissive of the jerks that she lives with. And then last bit of the movie, she realizes, holy crap, it's my roommate who gave me the cupcake, and she's trying to kill me with the poison cupcake. And she's been the person in the mask all along. And so they have a fight. Roommate dies, and loop ends. And she's with the guy who's super sweet and nice, and she's a better person. So I absolutely love the film. I thought it was a lot of fun. And I think I've mentioned before, my wife does not like scary movies anymore. She does not do scary. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'm going to have my wife watch this one. And like, it's like, I floated it to her. I'm like, it's kind of scary, but it's more like a rom-com. It's like, with like, she dies every time and, wakes up in the morning. She's not getting killed.
Yeah.
And then this triggered a conversation with my wife and I about, honey, your concept of what is scary is really kind of messed up. Mm-hmm. She's like, this movie is scarier than you think it was. So that was funny in its own way because, I mean, my wife said she loved it afterwards. She's like, this was a lot of fun. And she wants to watch the second one because there's a sequel. Mm-hmm. And but I thought it was interesting to me, which is why I looked up again. Why do I like horror movies? I guess I've gotten to the point where I'm so desensitized to a lot of this stuff that I wasn't scared at all by this movie. There were tense moments, but the stakes were low, right? Mm-hmm. So she's going to be fine. It's like a happy, fun movie, and so she's not going to die in the end. But anyway, that's kind of a different point. But I liked the movie a lot. Lots of little things here and there about the way she treated her friends and how that changed. And boy, the friend who's like the head of the sorority, massive, horrible person. Ugh.
Yeah.
Trying not to cuss on the podcast, but holy cow, she's bad.
Yeah.
I like to watch the director's cut of things if I can. Mm-hmm. And if you look on iTunes when you rent or buy a movie, it's like, here are what the extras are. And I can't remember if there was one of the extras about was a director's cut of that one or not, but I saw that there was like an alternate ending. And I'm like, oh, what's the alternate ending? And I look at so I didn't buy it, but I went on YouTube to find the alternate ending. And have you seen it? The alternate?
No, I may have. I don't know.
So alternate ending. After the fight with the friend, where she kicks the friend out of the not the friend, but like her roommate. Mm-hmm. After she kicks her friend out of the room, the original one, they're all happy and they go out to dinner. She and the guy, and everybody's happy. In the alternate ending, she's damaged still from the fight and everything, so she goes to the hospital again. And in the hospital, the wife of the doctor whom she was having an affair with at the beginning of the movie comes in and kills her, basically.
What?
Squirts like something into her IV, and she dies. Oh, it's a completely different vibe to the movie. That would definitely make it not as funny, ha. And I don't know if the idea was that she dies at the end in like part 2. She wakes up from that in the beginning. I don't know. I haven't seen part 2, so don't spoil it for me. But yeah. So thanks for that recommendation. It was really good. Liked it a lot.
Yeah, both. I think I feel like we had a good. We both feel like I feel like we had a good week. Like the two of us had a good time watching both of these movies.
Oh yeah,
which is good. I'm waiting for one or both of us to recommend movies that we're both like, this was trash. I hate you for recommending it.
Oh, that'll happen. I'm sure.
I'm sure it will. With especially since like I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch Winnie the Pooh 2. It's gonna be. I like to. I know that it's gonna happen. That regardless, like I know that you're gonna recommend me watch a movie that I'm going to watch about a quarter of the way through and immediately think I could probably just lie to Steve and tell him that I watched this movie and like just Wikipedia the premise and like meander my way through it. I know that you're going to do that at one point.
Yeah, it's possible. I will do my absolute best to actually watch the movies.
Yeah, no, I will too, even if it takes me a week.
So what's on deck for next week, you think? Or next time, whenever we do this?
Well, I have 2 directions that I want to go. So, part of me wants to recommend Happy Death Day 2 to you because it's just the next one and you're jazzed up about seeing it. Having said that, part of me doesn't want to recommend that yet, just to mess with you, because I technically already have a movie picked out for next time. So I'm gonna mess with you, and I'm gonna give you a different movie. The 2019 classic, Child's Play.
2019?
Yeah, not the original.
Is this like a reboot?
Yup.
Really?
Yup. It's the reboot.
Huh, I didn't know they did a reboot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen the first one, and I watched like a couple episodes of the TV show that is highly rated. I just didn't really get into it. But
yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah.
Yep.
I can do
Happy Death Day 2 will come at some point, or you just watch it on your own. We can still talk about it. It's not a big deal.
I probably will watch it on my own with my wife.
Yeah. It's great. That's the thing is like without spoiling it, from my vantage point, I was curious. I saw the first one. Or this movie, let me say this. This movie falls into a category where when the first one came out and I heard that they were going to make a second one, I didn't understand where they were going to go.
Okay.
I feel the same way about the movie Smile.
Okay. Are they doing a second one?
They're making a second one, and I have, based on the way the first one ended, I'm like, I don't know where this one's going to go because I feel like you kind of just told all the story.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about Thanksgiving. I think they're making a second Thanksgiving movie, and I don't know where you're going because this movie should be just let it be a one-off. Don't make a sequel just because you made money on the first one. That's me being an old curmudgeon about it. I'm aware, but Happy Death Day 2, in my opinion, just as good.
Really?
I think it's just as good. And
That's
I
good to
could
hear.
be completely screwy, but again, I don't want to ruin it. We're going to stop talking about it now. But I think that's why I was torn, because when you were going on about the movie, I'm like, oh man, he should just watch it. You should just watch it. Like,
I think
even
I will
even
just watch
on
it.
your own, outside of my recommendation of the next movie for the next podcast, you should just watch. Yeah,
Will do. Well, for you, I waffled a lot on this one because I know that you tend to like. So I'm still trying to figure out what kinds of horror movies you like.
when you figure it out, you let me know.
You are all over the place, dude.
Yep.
You did a list on Letterboxd of like, do not want to see these, and smoking hot turds.
Yeah.
Now the turds one I can mostly pretty much agree with. Ones that I don't like, but the not interested ones, I'm shocked by some of them because like they're some of my favorite horror movies, and yeah, so you're an enigma, dude. But I do know I decided to pick one that I know you're going to really enjoy, and it says that you haven't seen it, and that is Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Yeah,
that one, absolute 5 stars for me. It is the funniest, scary cabin in the woods type of a, horror hijinks type of a movie. It's horror in that. I'll stop there. But it's fun. It's gross at times. That's just probably why it's horror. But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's got Alan Tudyk in it, and he's one of my. I love everything that he's in. He's the guy who's the pilot in Firefly, the TV show Firefly, and he's also in a TV show that I really recommend anybody. It's on Peacock, I believe. It's called Resident Alien, and he's a alien who comes to the planet, and he's like a shapeshifter sort of alien, and he's taken the body of a doctor in a mountain town in Colorado, and there's like one kid in the town who can see him as he really looks like. It's a great movie. TV show. It's really fun. But anyway, Tucker and Dale versus Evil. That's gonna be easy to get to. It's on Hulu and Peacock and Amazon Prime right now, awesome. And Tubi. So
yeah.
Anyway, anything else?
I don't think so.
All right, dude. Well, I guess that's it for the day.
Awesome.
See ya.
See ya.